landing on the inside edge. Outside edge leads, landing on the inside edge. Outside, inside, pigeon toe back. So hopefully you're following along pretty well. It's about to get a little more complicated. Now we're going to do the grapevines, which is inside edge lead, outside edge land, outside edge land. If we put it together, duck walk forward, put it together with slightly smaller steps for more agility, under, over, under, over, headed back, pigeon toed, over, under, duck walk. And in a minute, you're going to see how quick this could get. Now, the idea is I have knee pads on, so I can feel the scraping of the knee pads as I'm going along. Without knee pads, you're going to feel pretty fancy-free. Now we'll work on some transitions. The transition is going to lead in with a side-to-side step, and then I'm going to have a focus that I want to look at. And that's what I'm going to try to reach back to first. Because if you have the focus going, everything follows suit just a little bit better. So I'm going to lead with my head, and I'm going to make my feet dance around to follow. I don't want my feet to be too heavy on the ground, so what I have them on is the balls of my feet. I might have my heel touch the ground just a little bit, but I'm never really sinking my weight back into it. I'm trying to stay more light and airy on the front half of my foot. So I'm going to look first and make my feet follow around afterwards. So I'm going to go side to side, look for it, step, step, side to side, duck walk forward. Side to side, looking at it, looking back for it, step, step, side to side. Now I want to break down what that turn is like. What the turn is like is pivoting off of the foot that's the last to leave the ground. But the more steps you make out of this, the simpler it's going to be for you when you first get started. And eventually you'll get to skip a couple of the steps, and there'll be a lot more pivoting. Pivoting is to have one point that's central and spin around off of it. You can practice pivoting in your shoes so that you can get real comfortable with it, and then you can try pivoting off the toes, pivoting off the heels, toes, heels, when you're in your skates. But if you haven't tried it in shoes first, you're not going to feel real agile and natural with it. So maybe we should do a couple of these before we get started on the turns. Okay? Now we're ready to turn with it. So side to side, turn, side to side, duck walk, side to side, turn, side to side, pigeon toe. And you could get a lot faster, but you want to start slow and be comfortable. In fact, you want to be bored with the pace that you're at before you move on to another pace. When you decide that you're ready to kick up the level of speed, it's just as easy as picking your feet up quicker and making your steps smaller. When you go at first, you want to go wide and be stable with things. But as you become more comfortable and more agile, you'll be able to keep everything real light and tight, real close to you. So for example, a beginning crossover might look like this and have lots of room to land. But a more advanced one would be like this, and a real quick step. One move that a lot of skaters find difficult when they first get started is a hockey stop. But a hockey stop can be a great thing to throw into your agility practice. It'll become a natural part of practicing agile moves because you won't be so focused on the hockey stop itself and how hard it's supposed to be. You'll be focused more on getting to the other cone and the task at hand. So the basic maneuver of a hockey stop is to have your feet slightly staggered. That's one foot in front of the other. And as one foot turns at basically a 90-degree angle, the other foot is just trying to follow it. So it's hard to show you without skates fully, but what I'm going to demonstrate is how I will be doing it when I have the skates on. When I do the hockey stop moves, I'll be going in figure eights. So I'm going to practice just walking this out in shoes first, and I would suggest you do the same. I'm going to make my way around this cone and as tight a turn as I possibly can. So I make a turn like this, and it kicks my heels out. When your heels kick out, that's going to slow your momentum to the point where you almost completely stop. And that's all a hockey stop is. It's a tight turn where the heels dig in and slow your momentum. The feet are slightly staggered. The back foot is trying to keep up with the front one the whole time. So I'm coming around the cone like this, and they're following each other. And then I'm going to have to throw a crossover to get out of that and figure eight my way over here and turn. It's a pretty tight turn. Your hips swing and your knees point the way. So it looks a lot like this. And a crossover to get back in and a tight turn. Crossover to get back in and a really tight turn. Now you can imagine with wheels on that this one is coming around and just the front two wheels of the back foot are just trying to catch up to the back two wheels of the front foot. The basic move in your shoes, which isn't going to translate exactly to rolling, but it's a good place to start, is having a foot in front, a foot behind, and having them do a really tight turn. If you can practice it on a glossy surface with some slippery shoes, it might help, or it might just make a crazy mess. But it's a place to start from. Okay, so this one I will be able to demonstrate a lot better with the skates on, but just as a dry run. And that's a hockey stop in just the general motion with your feet. But again, it's going to look a lot cooler in your skates than it's going to feel in your shoes. It's just to give you an introduction. It's not going to be entirely accurate, but it's just to give you an introduction and let your body see what it feels like to make these motions in the first place. I brought in my friend Isabel Ringer to help me demonstrate all of these different moves in a sequence. If you're just getting started with agility, or maybe it's something that you've been kind of afraid of, or maybe even avoiding, it's okay to slow it down and break it down for a second, and just go one step at a time. So Ringer's going to help demonstrate that slowing it down is still working on your agility, and it's great, and it's good for you, and it's awesome. And I'm going to demonstrate a slightly more sped up version, which is something that I'm ready for because I got bored with doing it so many times on repeat. But I still slow it down when I need that practice, and it's okay for you to do that too. So starting with side to side, Ringer's going to demonstrate going from side to side and then doing a duck walk to move forward, side to side on the way back, and pigeon toes to come back. And I'm doing the same exact thing. I'm just going to try to do it maybe in double time. So in order to get that speed going, I'm really bouncing off of the front half of my foot. Now Ringer's going to demonstrate doing the crossovers. Crossovers on the way over, crossovers on the way back. In order to do this in double time, I'm going to try to keep my feet really close under my body and just do it a little bit faster. Moving on to the grapevine. Ringer's demonstrating the grapevine, one foot forward, the other foot behind. If you want to do it just a little bit faster, a little less distance. Now we're going to practice a side-to-side step with a transition in between. So you do whatever level of that you're ready to do. Now we're going to do the hockey stop maneuver, which again, is not going to be incredibly fluid and graceful on shoes, but it's worth practicing. So Ringer's going to go around the cone, stay close to it, and then cross over to figure eight her way back. And I'm actually not going to be doing it too much faster than that because it is so awkward and strange in shoes. I've got my feet staggered. But this being a more skilled move, you want to take the time to make sure that you're getting the maneuvers correct. We're trying it here in shoes. We're going to try it again in skates. We've got our skates on now. We're going to do the whole sequence on skates. Start with Isabelle Ringer at the more beginning basic version, stripping down all the fanciness and just making sure that you've got the steps and feel comfortable. And then you can move on with me to try to pick up the pace just a little bit, if that's what you're ready for. If you're not ready, you can just do the sequence again at your own pace. And here's Isabelle Ringer. She's starting with the side to side. She's pigeon toeing to make her way back, and as you can see, she's got the edges going on. She's taking her time, going for the steps, making sure each foot's got a stable landing before she picks the next one up. With the over-under, she's taking her time. She's focusing on quality over quantity, and just making sure that she feels stable and comfortable, and that things are working out so that she gets the practice that she needs. It's not about looking fancy as putting in the practice. When you do deliberate practice like this, speed is something that naturally comes with time. Now she's going for the figure eights. This is not something to stress out about doing a perfect hockey stop. You're just focused on having your feet staggered, making your way tightly around the cone, and doing a transition back into the next crossover. And now at just a slightly higher speed. Before we got started with the 2-cone drills, we broke down the skills that were necessary and did them in our shoes first. Then put the skates on and very gradually ramped up the level of speed. You feel free to make up your own combinations of these drills in your own 2-cone drills. This can just be a starting point for you, but make sure that when you move on to the next step, it's because you felt good and comfortable with the last one. Now we're going to work on the line drills. Just as a quick reminder, before you get started on the line drills, you want to have a good warm-up and a good sweat going before you start stretching yourself to do things that maybe your body's not comfortable doing on a day-to-day basis. The line drill